very, very special guest on today. That is former Chiefs offensive lineman Joe Valerio. It's an honor to have him on. Thanks for coming on the show. We're going to start off and jump into the questions. The first question I got for you is how loud was Arrowhead Stadium when you played there? What was your experience of the noise? How loud it was there?
Oh my goodness. Well, first, Bryce, I just want to say thank you for having me on. This is an honor to be joining you. You have a great show and you do such a great job following the Chiefs. And you must be so proud of yourself for being such a great sportscaster and fan of the Chiefs kingdom. So I appreciate you having me on. How was Arrowhead? Let me tell you. It's right behind me. You can see if anybody's watching the video and not just listening to the audio, but I always keep a picture of it behind me when I do a podcast. It was an incredible place to play football. I mean, it was so loud, and the fans were so into supporting the Chiefs that you couldn't not feel the excitement. And I know that the teams that came into play, they felt very intimidated when they came into Arrowhead because it was loud for them. The fans were great at keeping it quiet for us when we were on offense. But when we were on defense, that place was rocking, and they're amazing fans. And I can't say enough about how awesome it was to play at Arrowhead. I played in most of the stadiums in the NFL. There was a few that I didn't get the chance to play in. But of all the stadiums I played in, it was obviously, for a lot of reasons, my favorite.
Yeah, Arrowhead does a very good job of, making lots of noise. They got the record. I actually got that plaque right there. They got the record. Loud stadium. Haven't gone there yet, but you can just hear it through the TV of how loud it is.
Yeah, well, we got to get you there at some point, huh? We got to find a way, right?
Yeah,
You're doing such a great job covering the Chiefs. We got to get you there.
Yeah. So how was it playing with quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in history, Joe Montana? You obviously caught a few, touchdown passes for him as an offensive lineman, so that was pretty cool. But how was it playing with him?
Oh, Joe Montana was the best. He was such a great leader, Bryce. He was the first guy at the stadium in the morning getting his workout in, and he was always the last player to leave, which meant he was putting in the time. And even for a guy who had won 4 Super Bowls, and he was Super Bowl MVP of the league. Like, he had done it all, won a national championship in college. Like, he epitomized to me leadership by example, right? Doing the right thing, always being there for his teammates. He was so supportive. He was never one of those players, teammates, leaders, Bryce, that ever showed anger towards another teammate if they made a mistake. He was always there to pick you up and be supportive. That's what I really loved about Joe Montana, was his leadership by example, besides the fact that he was awesome as a person, and he was obviously one of the greatest quarterbacks and maybe just overall football players to ever play the game. What he did to show us how to be a true leader is what I will always take with me as lessons for life.
Yeah, what you just described reminds me a ton of quarterback Patrick Mahomes. He's such a leader. There's very rare times where you're going to see him upset. You will see him upset, but that's a part of the game. You're going to get upset and mad. So you will see that. As I'm sure that Joe Montana had his moments where he was upset.
Oh, yeah. You want that passion, right? You want your quarterback to have passion, but the way that they handle themselves and the way they treat their teammates, and that's what sets them apart and makes them really great.
I don't think I've ever seen Patrick Mahomes call out a teammate now in practice. He has before, said you're holding, but he's never. He's always picking his teammates up during games that are close, and it's awesome to have a quarterback like that. That's for sure.
Definitely.
So during your NFL career, how many coaches and what coaches, coached you? Head coaches.
Head coaches, I was very fortunate in Kansas City to only have one head coach in the 6 years that I was there, Coach Marty Schottenheimer. He was my coach, and he's the guy that brought me into the organization and drafted me to the team, along with Carl Peterson, who was our president and general manager. And my offensive line coach at the time of my rookie year was a gentleman by the name of Howard Mudd, who was one of the all-time great line coaches. I was very lucky to have such great coaches. I mean, coaches that I was exposed to, besides Coach Schottenheimer, of course, Herm Edwards, who went on, he was actually somebody I watched growing up as a child. I grew up in Philadelphia, so I watched Herm Edwards as a player with the Eagles. And I had other Eagles like John Bunting and Carl Hairston, Eagles players who came to coach in Kansas City. I had guys like Bill Cowher, who went on to coach the Steelers as their head coach. Again, I said Herm Edwards, who went on to coach the Jets. I had some amazing Gunther Cunningham, Al Saunders, like some of the, older Chiefs fans might remember some of those names that were just legendary coaches that really helped shape, my career, which is awesome. But Coach Schottenheimer as a head coach was awesome, and I think he was one of the coaches that really built the foundation for what you see today at Arrowhead.
Coach Schottenheimer is definitely a great coach, definitely one of the best in Chiefs history. What do you think the Chiefs' chances are to go back-to-back Super Bowl champions?
I think they have a great chance. A lot of it, Bryce, as you know, in the game of football, it comes down to staying healthy and keeping your best 22 healthy throughout the season as much as you can, and trying to avoid that, because that's really, I think, the number one. I think the number one thing the Chiefs are going to have to be careful of. Like, they have the talent, they've got the playbook, right? We saw what they did last year. They can win from behind, they can win from ahead. Like, there's not a situation that they can't get themselves out of if they work hard enough at it. The big thing that you have to be careful of in the NFL is they call it attrition by injury, right? You just have to be careful that you don't lose too many players throughout the season, and that's, to me, that's like the ultimate key. So, but all things considered, if they stay healthy, there's no reason why they shouldn't be the favorite to repeat and get back to the Super Bowl this year.
I totally agree. I believe right now, a while ago, they were the favorites to go back-to-back. I don't know if that's changed, but yeah, exactly what you said. They got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. They're all still there. There's no reason why they shouldn't, go back to the Super Bowl, if not win it. Obviously, it's tough. The AFC is hard. It's getting harder every year, adding more people. But if Patrick can keep his ankle healthy and that team can stay healthy, that team is going to do even more damage.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you get to play with any other quarterbacks other than Joe Montana?
I did when I first got into the league as a rookie. My first year, 1991, our starting quarterback was Steve DeBerg, who was played for a really long time. I think he made the 20-year mark. I think he ended up getting almost 20 seasons in as an NFL quarterback. So I got to play with Steve. Got to play with Steve Pallure was another quarterback in that era. Mark Vlasic was another. So that was like my first year or two. And then Dave Craig came in 1992. He was our starting quarterback in 1992. He was a free agent pickup from the Seattle Seahawks, where he had a fantastic career. And then in 1993 and 94, obviously Joe Montana comes along, and he was, obviously the GOAT of his time, and got to play with him. And then he had quarterbacks like Steve Bono backing him up, Rich Gannon, Super Bowl quarterback and NFL MVP. Matt Blunden was a backup quarterback with the Chiefs, who was a quarterback that I grew up with. We were actually high school buddies, and we played high school football, basketball, and baseball together. He went to the University of Virginia. So we were teammates for 4 years in Kansas City, which was awesome to have a somebody you've known since you were 5 years. Imagine somebody that you've known since you were 5 years old, Bryce, that you go and play for the Chiefs for. So that was really cool. But and then after Steve Bono took over as the starter after Joe Montana retired, and and Rich Gannon. So yeah, lots of great quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to know, what was your favorite food when you had to be in shape, for football? And then what's your favorite food for now that you're retired?
Oh man. Well, when it comes to eating, I used to say that I was on a seafood diet. If I see food, I eat it, because I was a lineman, right? And linemen have to be big, and they got to eat a lot. So, I was taking in a lot of calories to keep my weight and keep my size as a lineman. And I had two foods that I would always eat. I'll tell you a funny story. I had two foods that I would always eat depending on what time the game was, home games. If it was a home game that was before 1 o'clock, I would always have French toast for breakfast. And if it was a game after 1 o'clock, I always had pasta and chicken. So those were my two pregame meals that I always had if it was an early game versus a later game. Um, yeah, so food was obviously a big part of a lineman's diet because you have to take in a lot of calories. So, but I tried to be healthy with it. I just didn't eat any old thing. I just didn't. But I did eat a lot of calories. So I try to eat lean meats, chicken, fish, a lot of really good vegetables, high calorie vegetables and things to keep eating healthily, but also have a lot of calories. Today, oh man, I'm a big pasta guy. I love, I'm Italian, so I love good homemade spaghetti and lasagna and anything with good red sauce with some cheese on it. So, but then again, as you get older, gotta be careful, especially when when you played line and you were used to eating a lot, you get into some bad habits, and I have to make sure that I don't revert back to when I was a player and say, oh well, I can just eat whatever I want, because you get a little bit older and you start packing on the pounds, and I'm not playing anymore, so I don't need to be that big.
So, is there a favorite type of fish you like? Mine's salmon, big time salmon. But favorite type of fish you like?
Yeah, I love salmon. That's probably one of my favorites. I like bronzino, which is generally it's served Italian style. So I do like bronzino fish, which is really good. It's a mild white fish. I like always like flounder, stuff with crab meat. I live here on the East Coast, so crabs are very popular here. So you get like a nice flounder stuff with crab meat. So love that. And yeah, those are probably my two favorite fish that I love. Besides salmon, I do love a good salmon on a cedar plank. Oh man, delicious. Grilled, of course, because you live in Kansas City, you learn how to grill for sure.
How impressed are you with Patrick Mahomes over his career so far? Obviously, been to 3 Super Bowls, won two MVPs, two Super Bowl MVPs, multiple AFC championships made in a row. I think it's 5 in a row. Just history making here, and he's on track to catch Tom Brady. How impressed are you with Patrick so far?
He's a player. I mean, you can't say enough good things about the guy. And I've been watching Quarterback on Netflix. I've been watching the Quarterback series, and I tell you what, I'm most impressed with Patrick Mahomes. That even though I'm a former player, I don't have a big line of sight into you know how the players work out and all that stuff. I mean, I of course watch the games. I cover the Chiefs on a podcast that I do, but the the thing I'm most impressed with is how hard he works. Like he's just it's unbelievable the amount of time he puts in, and I love his unique workout styles. Like he's finding new and creative ways to train his body to use his skills to the best of his ability, like the way that he uses his arm and the way that he trains to be able to throw better and throw from different positions. And if anybody watches that show Quarterback, that's the first thing you notice, that he has very unique style of training, and the amount of work that he puts in. It just shows you that you can't just show up on Sundays and be great, right? You actually have to work at it. And if you spend the time honing your craft by working hard and practicing and doing all the right things and staying healthy and eating the right foods and lifting your weights and doing well in school, like all that stuff adds up, and it turns you into somebody like Patrick Mahomes. So really impressed with his work ethic and his playmaking ability. But I think a lot of his playmaking ability comes from the fact that he works so hard.
Yeah, I just ended episode 5 of Quarterback. So far, it's awesome. And you're also seeing quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins and Marcus Mariota on there. So it's definitely awesome. It's an awesome show for sure. Um, how do you think the Chiefs draft went this season? Obviously, last year the draft was absolutely amazing, having all these rookies come in: Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Trent McDuffie. You got all these players coming on in, George Karlaftis making a huge impact for Kansas City, and without those players, don't know if you go to the Super Bowl. I don't know that the rookies made step for us this year. But then, so how do you think the draft went for this season? Obviously, you're getting Felix Anudike, Uzoma, Rashee Rice. How do you think it went?
I thought they had a great draft. I mean, I would say, they drafted this season for need, right? Like they did a great job this draft of knowing where they needed to get depth. I love the Felix Anudike Uzoma draft pick because I think he's a local player that's going to bring just a tremendous force on the edge, and I was excited about that. I think he was a great pick, number 31, and I'm glad that they moved, that they picked him. I mean, I don't know if he was probably slated to be a first round pick, but the fact that he's a local player, I think adds to what his motivation is going to be like to really perform for the Chiefs. So I was excited about that, and they needed that. They needed depth at the edge, right, on the edge rusher position. So I was really excited about that. He's big, he's tall, he's got all the measurables. I think that's going to allow him to learn from from a George Karlaftis and to really follow in his footsteps in the great rookie year that he had. And losing Carlos Dunlap and Frank Clark, he's going to get in the rotation and he's going to definitely see some time, and I'm excited about that. So I thought that was a good one. Rashee Rice, I think, again, to use the term, like, I think he was a steal at coming in the second round at pick 55. I think he has all of the sort of the skill set and talent to be a long-time player. He's very durable, and I'm really, really excited about seeing him get back out on the field because he makes some impressive catches. Wanya Morris in the third round, I thought definitely going to provide some depth for the Chiefs. He played Tennessee, transferred to Oklahoma. Big time football. Really like his style of play. He's very physical, which is great. And and then you go down to the fourth round and. Chamari Connor, I mean, gives that depth in the defensive backfield that they need. So I think all in all, I think up, especially the fourth round and then even beyond with some of the players that rounded out the draft, I thought it was pretty good. I think they drafted for need. I know they didn't go for the big splashy player and try to move up in the draft, but sometimes you can't afford to do that when you're trying to balance a whole roster and the way that general manager Brett Veach does.
So yeah, general manager Brett Veach drafted Nick Jones in the 7th round, and about a month before the draft, I did a mock draft, and every player was wrong except for cornerback Nick Jones. So I was so happy that I got one player right. I thought that was pretty cool because that's hard when there's hundreds and hundreds of players going into the draft.
Yeah, good for you. That's a great pickup there, and I think he definitely great pick in the 7th round. With number 250, and played in all the games in his college career at Ball State, and tons of tackles, and very versatile player, and very just had some great accolades. Played in the East West Shrine game and the All-Star game. So I think another really, really good pick in the 7th round, and a great pick by you figuring that one out.
Do you see left guard Joe Thuney possibly ever playing left tackle for the Chiefs? Maybe this season, next season. You got Donovan Smith right now at left tackle. 2 years ago had a good year. Last year obviously had a down year. So if Donovan Smith does unfortunately have another down year, could you see Joe Thuney moving the switch to left tackle, and maybe Darren Kennard taking the left guard spot, or maybe Wanya Morris going to left tackle? What do you think could happen there?
Yeah, that's a really good pickup there, Bryce. That Joe Thuney's probably on this squad probably the most versatile of the players that the Chiefs have. So I think I think that's a definite possibility. But look, I know that Donovan Smith he's a really, really good athlete. I think he and Jawan Taylor are going to fit in very well into this blocking system and the scheme that the Chiefs run on offense. And I'm really excited to see how this offensive line gels throughout the beginning of the season. They've got some great backups in Nick Allegretti and Austin Reiter and Darian Kennard in the interior. Lucas Niang, we got to get him healthy, get him out there. So I think they've got plenty of depth on the offensive line. Now it's going to be a matter of getting them all to gel. While I would love to see Joe Thuney if he had to go out and play left tackle, I just think those three inside, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith, I think they are so formidable as an interior three. I'd hate to break that up. And but I know that he could. I know that he could. I think he's an athlete, and he could definitely make that switch if he had to. But I think they're going to be all right. I don't know if they're going to need that this year. I think with Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor, unless of course injury, again, circling back to our original comment, right, about staying healthy, that's always the key. As long as they all stay healthy, I think this five up front is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the NFL this year.
Yeah, that O-line is it's really good. I mean, you compare it to the when they won the Super Bowl 54, and the O-line wasn't awesome, and you compare it to now, it's a huge difference, and that is awesome. Do you have a favorite NFL player or QB that you admire from?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously it's very easy for me to say how much I enjoyed Joe Montana, right? I mean, I just thought the world of him as a player, as a person, as a teammate, and it was a real honor to get to play with somebody like that. I have to say, one of my favorite players that I ever came in contact with, besides Joe and some I mean, they're all great. I have a very special place for Derek Thomas in my heart. Derek Thomas was, obviously, his life was cut short tragically, way too short. He's one of the best teammates I was ever around. And if it weren't for him, I don't know if I would have played as long in the NFL. He really worked with me. And when I was a rookie, he would teach me and show me ways to get better at blocking, even though he obviously played defensive end and linebacker. He was always there to lend support and to teach and to help the younger players. And he was one of the kindest and nicest people I've ever met in my life. And he was so generous that it's hard to not say that he's one of my favorite teammates and favorite players for a lot of reasons. And the biggest one being the way that he, every day we would go against each other at training camp my first year, and then subsequently after that too, in the next years that I played. But he was so good at wanting his teammates to be better every day that he pushed us, and he coached me to a point where I think he really helped me hang around the league for as long as I did.
That is awesome. And then for the last question here on the show, what was the coolest game you ever played in?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I'd have to say, I played in some really good playoff games, and I'll give you two because it's really hard to distinguish between these two. Number one was probably the Joe Montana, Steve Young 49ers Chiefs shootout when the 49ers came to Kansas City in 1994, and Joe Montana got to play against the team that had sort of kind of cast him off a little bit and traded him. And there was kind of an interesting, arrangement or relationship that he had with Steve Young, who ultimately became his replacement and starter at quarterback in San Francisco. And to be a part of that game and actually to score a touchdown in that game from Joe Montana was an unbelievable thrill. Like, I'll never forget it. And then also in the same vein, I was able to score a touchdown in the Monday night game, the Chiefs against the Broncos in 1993. And, that was, or I'm sorry, in 1990, it was also in 1994. In 1994, I caught a touchdown pass from Joe on a Monday night game against Denver Broncos, which was the first time that Coach Schottenheimer ever won at Mile High Stadium. And it was on Monday night, and it was a shootout. And it came down to the last second of the game. We scored a touchdown, a game-winning drive that Joe Montana orchestrated to put us ahead. And we had barely any time left on the clock when he threw his final touchdown to Willie Davis to win the game, to seal the game. But then the 49 or the Broncos actually got the ball back, and they were going to try to drive, and John Elway was really good at the comeback. So, and we ended up holding out and winning that game, and that was a real treat and a game to be a part of for sure.
That is absolutely awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's an honor to have Joe Valerio on. It's it's absolutely amazing. Can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Maybe in the future you'll come back on.
Oh, absolutely, Bryce. Anytime.
And thank you for coming. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Peace.
There you go. Thanks, Bryce.
Bye.